My name is Tatum. I'm 32 and live in a quiet neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. The streets in my suburb are simple and calm, the kind of place where little kids ride bikes until the streetlights glow at dusk. By day, I work as a marketing manager at a mid-sized firm downtown. It's a fast-paced job, pitches, deadlines, campaigns, but I secretly love it. Still, no matter how much work I pour into my career, there's a voice inside me that whispers about the one thing I want most: a family of my own. Sometimes, when the world feels too quiet, I recall summer cookouts at my parents' backyard, my little cousin's laughter echoing, sticky fingers pulling on my skirt, begging me for another bedtime story. Those memories filled me with warmth and a lingering ache. I wanted laughter like that in my own home, kids of my own. But Declan, my husband, had other plans. Declan works as a logistics supervisor. He prides himself on spreadsheets, budgets, making everything stable. Stability, for him, is not children, but one thing only: a massive dream house. He repeats his mantra endlessly: we need a foundation first, Tatum. Only then we can think about kids. We had just celebrated 1 year of marriage, and already cracks were showing in that so-called foundation. Back when we dated, I admired his resolve. He grew up watching his family lose everything when his father lost a job, and that fear of instability shaped his every move. But today, that drive didn't inspire me. It caged me. His stubbornness was turning into a wall I couldn't climb over. Whenever I suggested something, a short getaway, just to recharge, he shut it down. We can't waste money, he'd say. Yet he was never shy about splurging on beers with coworkers at the sports bar. And then there were his parents. They lived just 10 minutes away, in their perfectly neat, split-level home. And every single Sunday, it was our unspoken duty: dinner at their house, without fail. And just as predictable, the conversation always turned to one thing: grandkids. Tatum, you're not getting younger, his mom would say, eyes sharp. When are we going to get some good news? Declan would stay silent, sipping coffee, while their words stabbed only at me. I wanted to scream, "Talk to your son," but instead, I smiled bitterly, carrying the questions on my shoulders alone. I had grown up with parents who never had much, but always made room for laughter and love. We didn't have stability in dollars, but we had it in each other. That's why this hurt even more. By Declan's side, I wasn't growing, I was shrinking. I had promised myself once to never be in a relationship where my voice didn't matter. Yet here I was, watching my dreams smother under his control. Some wounds heal, but family betrayal leaves scars forever. The tension in our house grew heavier each week. Declan became relentless about saving money. "Don't leave the lights on, Tatum," he'd scold. "Don't waste hot water, we're not made of gold." And the irony: I was the one clipping coupons, turning down takeout, doing everything to pad our savings. Meanwhile, he stumbled home, some nights carrying the faint smell of craft beer and chicken wings. "It's just networking," he'd shrug. Networking, blowing $50 on IPAs. That was his idea of discipline. But the Sundays at his parents' dining table were the worst. Their dining room, with its fading floral wallpaper, felt less like a home, more like a courtroom. His mom leaned forward, her words like a dagger. "A woman's place is in the home, Tatum. Don't you think your job distracts you from being a proper wife?" My stomach twisted. But Declan, he stared at his plate, as if it carried the secrets of life. His dad chimed in, "It's been a year. We're ready to spoil grandkids." A lump formed in my throat. The truth trembled on my tongue. It wasn't my choice to wait, it was his. Declan was the roadblock, not me. Yet the words failed me. All I muttered was, "We're working on it," and the walls closed in tighter. But one Sunday, I couldn't take it anymore. His mom's voice cut sharper than ever. "Maybe if you quit working so much, Declan would be ready for kids." I set my fork down. My hands shook, but my voice rose. "With all due respect, Declan's the one who wants to wait. He insists we need a house first. So if you want grandkids, Maybe ask him instead of pointing at me. The room went silent. His dad coughed awkwardly. His mom's lips thinned into a tight, cold smile. Declan's glare burned into me, like I had betrayed some unspoken code. Later, in the car, I finally broke. Why do you let them blame me? You sit silent while they pin everything on me. He gripped the steering wheel. They're just trying to help, Tatum. And you want a house too, don't you? Eating at their place saves us money. I laughed bitterly. Saving? What about all your bar tabs? Your sneaky cigarettes? Don't lecture me about sacrifices when I'm the only one making them. He went quiet. That silence spoke louder than words. That night, I decided, I'm done with Sunday dinners. I can't sit there and be their target while you hide. He looked shocked, but I no longer cared. Family pressure had dragged me down long enough. In the game of blood and trust, silence can be the deepest betrayal. A few months later, life delivered a twist I never saw coming. My uncle, a man wrapped in mystery, passed away. He had been the quiet type, yet behind him was a small empire of hardware stores scattered across Ohio. To the outside world, he was successful, even glamorous. He lived in an enormous house outside Dayton, held dazzling parties, and always seemed one step removed from his family. I hadn't seen him in years, yet suddenly his lawyer was calling me. When I picked up the phone, I learned my name was in his will. My uncle had left me what sounded like an enormous inheritance, $920,000. The number alone nearly stole my breath. But then came the catch. A mountain buried beneath the gold. There were lingering debts, property issues, and legal storms that turned the inheritance into more burden than blessing. I asked the lawyer to meet me at our apartment to go through the details. When I told Declan I needed privacy for this, his face soured. Instead of respecting my request, he muttered irritably, "Fine, I'll get a coffee." And out the door he went, shoulders tight with curiosity he could barely hide. Sitting there at the kitchen table, the lawyer unfolded the truth. My uncle's other children had already stepped away from the inheritance completely, wanting nothing to do with the tangled mess. Yes, the $920,000 looked real on paper, but by the time loans, taxes, and property maintenance were accounted for, there'd be little to salvage. I listened with a pounding heart, and it struck me. This wasn't just about numbers. It was a chance for me to make a choice about my life, one separate from Declan's obsession with control. I was always expected to obey his financial rules, his family's judgments, his silence. But for once, this choice, even if it only meant saying no, could be mine. When the meeting ended and Declan returned, his entire energy was different. His eyes sparkled in a way that unsettled me. "So, your uncle was loaded, huh?" he asked, almost too casual. He'd never cared much about my relatives before, but now he wanted to know more, too much more. I shrugged, brushing him off. "The lawyer's still sorting things out," I said vaguely, deliberately leaving the details blurred. Declan's curiosity turned his face into a mask, but I knew exactly why I couldn't hand him the truth. He had a way of taking anything and making it serve his purpose. And if I ever gave him those details, he'd twist them into his blueprint for my future. For the first time in months, I felt a small crack of light, control, something that was mine alone, outside his grasp. A spark of rebellion whispered that maybe, just maybe, I still had power over my own story. But little did I know, Declan, with his parents at his side, was already plotting how to rip that control back. And he wouldn't stop until betrayal cut deeper than I'd ever imagined. Sometimes, the heaviest chains aren't made of iron, but of family duty twisted into control. 5 long months after that tense meeting with the lawyer, Declan approached me with a strange brightness in his eyes. There was a sharpness in his grin that felt less like happiness, and more like he knew something I didn't. "I've got something to show you," he said, grabbing his car keys before I could even ask questions. Curiosity tangled inside me with dread. Still, I followed him into the car. We drove past the familiar stretches of Columbus until we reached a newer subdivision on the edge of town. Here, the lawns were freshly mowed, the driveways spotless, the houses standing taller like mini mansions in perfect rows. I thought this was just a casual detour, But then Declan stopped the car in front of one of the biggest houses on the block, and waiting right there on the driveway were his parents. Beaming, "Welcome to your new home," his father declared, as if the decision was already carved in stone. My stomach dropped. My fingers tightened around the car door handle. "What is this?" I asked, staring at Declan. He shrugged, carefree, as though this was the most natural thing in the world. "It's a single-family house. Dad and I pooled our money together. You'll love living here, with my parents. It'll bring us all closer." For a moment, everything around me froze. Time, sound, even the air I breathed. It all paused as his words sank in. Living with them. After months of voicing how suffocating those Sunday dinners had been. After every fight about boundaries and judgment. He went behind my back to bind me to the very thing I begged to escape. My voice trembled, but I forced it out. "You did this, without even asking me." Before he could answer, his mother stepped in like she'd been waiting for her cue, her tone sharp, accusing. "You're always so ungrateful, Tatum." Blaming Declan for everything, even for not having kids yet. Maybe if he stopped working so hard and focused on family, you two would be further along. Her words burned deep, but what hurt more was the silence from Declan. He didn't defend me. He didn't explain. He didn't even blink. He just stood there, letting me take the fire from his parents once again. His silence was his betrayal. Then, with a cruel sort of triumph, Declan dropped his bombshell. "Your uncle's inheritance, that $920,000, just use it to pay us back for the house. Problem solved." The world spun. My chest squeezed tight, as if someone had punched the air from me. The inheritance, the burden I had quietly decided to renounce. He had already counted it as his payday. He'd built this trap believing my uncle's money was his to control. Our marriage? My future. He had signed my life over in his head. I steadied my voice, though everything inside me raged. "That money is not what you think, Declan." I renounced it. There were debts, lawsuits, obligations. It wasn't worth it. His face drained pale. His parents' smug smiles froze into shock. Declan stammered, "You what?" I didn't stop. My words hit like hammers. "And even if I hadn't renounced it, it's my decision, not yours. You don't get to hijack my life and call it love." It was then that Declan revealed his final card. He pulled out a sheet of paper, crisp and sharp, with his name already signed, a divorce petition. His eyes cold, his voice like stone. "If you won't live with my parents and use the money, then we're done." The betrayal wasn't just in the paper, but in the smug way he chose the house. Chose his parents, chose money, over me, over us. A storm whirled inside my chest, but my hand stayed steady as I took that paper from him. I met his icy stare head on. "Fine," I said, each word slicing the air between us. "Divorce it is." I turned and walked away, leaving Declan and his parents standing in front of their perfect dream house. A house built on lies and betrayal. A house they thought would trap me forever. But in that moment, I felt a strange calm settle, because I realized they had already lost me. He built a house with walls meant to cage me, but all he really built was the ruin of our marriage. Family betrayal always comes with a price, and karma was waiting at the front door. The very next day, I took that signed paper, his divorce form, and filed it. Walking out of the courthouse, I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was reclaiming my voice, my freedom, and my future. Declan's betrayal had cut deeper than I expected. Not just because he trapped me with his parents' home, not just because he tried to lay claim to money that wasn't his, but because he did it all without a single thought of asking me. He had shown his true colors. And once you see the truth, that clearly, there's no going back. Packing up my apartment was harder than I imagined. At the nearby home improvement store, I picked up cardboard boxes and tape, hired movers, and began the slow, painful process of breaking down a life I once thought was solid. Each item I tucked away carried weight. The dishes we bought together, the books I once read while waiting for him to come home, my old college sketchbooks that reminded me of a time when I believed in me. Every folded shirt, every sealed box was a reminder. I wept while packing, but not because I missed him. My tears came from mourning the belief I once held, that Declan and I were a team. I realized now, I was the only one fighting for us. And even in this unraveling, Declan wouldn't let go easily. One evening, just as I was boxing up clothes, there was a furious pounding on the door. My heart jumped, but I had left the chain lock in place. A barrier between us I wasn't willing to break again. "Tatum, open the door," he shouted, his voice breaking with anger. "I don't want a divorce," I answered calmly, steady despite my shaking hands. "You signed the papers, Declan. You made your choice, not me." Silence settled for a second. Then his tone shifted, sharper, demanding. "Why did you walk away from your uncle's inheritance? Do you have any idea how much easier it would have made things for us?" My chest burned, but I didn't flinch. "Because it wasn't what you thought it was, Declan. It was weighed down with debts, lawsuits, issues no one wanted to deal with. My whole family renounced it. So did I. You only ever heard half the story. And you built a house on an assumption." He stood frozen by the chain-locked door. I could almost hear the crash of reality against his pride. "That's not partnership," I continued, voice low but firm. "That's control. You never asked me what I wanted. You just assumed I would pay for your dream while sacrificing mine." I watched him through the crack, his face a storm of disbelief and regret he couldn't swallow. And then I shut him out. "Go stay with your parents, Declan. I'm done carrying the weight of your silence." The latch clicked shut between us. But in my heart, I knew I had closed the door long before tonight. Sometimes freedom isn't found in running away. It's in standing still and refusing to open the door to betrayal. Life after filing the divorce wasn't easy, but it was mine. At work, I chose honesty. I told my boss and my team the truth. Declan and I were separating. There were no dramatic lies, no fake stories to cover embarrassment. My boss, who had once tried to play mediator between us, offered quiet sympathy. My coworkers, many of whom had lined the dance floor at our wedding, offered something even stronger, support. But Declan wasn't ready to disappear quietly into the shadows he had created for himself. One afternoon, just as I was wrapping up a late meeting, the glass doors to the office flew open. Declan stormed in like a thundercloud, his face flushed crimson with rage. Everyone in the office froze. His voice boomed across the floor, cracking through the quiet hum of keyboards. "You're telling people I'm the bad guy, huh?" he roared. "They think you got some big inheritance, and I'm just some greedy jerk trying to take it. Is that what you're telling them?" The office went dead silent. Faces peeked over cubicles. People froze, mid-keystroke, eyes wide as they witnessed the unraveling. I took a slow breath, turned to him, and let calm guide me. "No, Declan," I said steadily, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What happened here isn't about inheritance. It's about assumptions. You made them. You ran with half the story, and you never listened. That's why we're here." My voice was calm, but inside I felt a shift. For the first time in our entire relationship, he wasn't in control of the narrative. Declan's eyes darted around the office, desperate, cornered like an animal exposed. I could see the heat of humiliation radiating off him as whispers began to ripple through the room. His chest rose and fell faster, his anger crumbling into something raw, shame. Without another word, he turned and stormed out, leaving behind a silence that crackled with shock. My colleagues' eyes followed him in disbelief, and sympathy turned toward me. Days later, word came that Declan had quit his job. The gossip was too much for him to handle. The office confrontation had been the final straw. Karma had found him, not with violence, but with humiliation. He had once believed I was silent, pliable, someone he could twist into his family's mold. But instead, when he tried to expose me, he exposed himself. The ties that once bound us had snapped, and in their place, a cleaner truth remained. Declan was no victim. His downfall was his own design. In the end, he didn't lose to me. He lost to his own arrogance. Family betrayal had lit the fire, but karma carried the ashes. In the middle of the chaos, just when I thought my world had collapsed into rubble, a quiet voice reached me. Ezra. He was a graphic designer on my team, the kind of person you notice, not because he's loud, but because he is steady. Steady in how he works, steady in how he speaks, steady in the way his warm eyes made people feel seen. One afternoon during lunch break, he approached me, hesitant but firm. His words carried no drama, no games, only sincerity. "Tatum, I've admired you for a long time," he said softly. "Your strength, the way you stand up for yourself, it inspires me. I'd love the chance to build something with you, something real, a life where both of us listen." His voice cut through the noise of betrayal I had lived under for so long. It felt like sunlight after endless gray. I stared at him, surprised, but more than that, I felt something bloom that I thought I'd lost forever: hope. He wasn't offering me a castle, or control, or conditions. He was offering respect, and that meant more than any dollar, any house, any false stability. Ezra knew pain too. He told me later how he'd walked away from a marriage where he was silenced, expected to be a shadow. His honesty wrapped around me like proof that I wasn't alone in this storm. For the first time in months, my chest felt lighter, not because I was ready to leap into something new, but because I realized a truth I had nearly buried. I was worth love that listened. As I settled into my new apartment, each day felt like breathing fresh air. The walls weren't wide, the space wasn't grand, but for the first time, it was mine. The clinking of unpacked dishes, the smell of fresh paint, even the creak of the worn hardwood floor reminded me this is where I start over. Every box I opened carried meaning. My sketchbooks, once stored away, reminded me of my voice, my art, my dreams. The dishes weren't just dishes. They were a symbol that I could still feed myself, still nurture, still grow. And when I looked at the mirror, I didn't see the small, silenced woman shrinking under Declan's demand. I saw someone stronger, someone who clawed her way out of betrayal and found power in saying no. Declan thought I'd fold. His parents thought I'd bend. But in choosing myself, I had proven something bigger, that their control was powerless the moment I stopped giving it weight. I wasn't just leaving Declan. I was leaving behind the idea that my dreams were less than his. Karma had played its hand. Declan lost his wife, his job, and the respect of the very people he choked with his arrogance. His downfall didn't need my revenge. His choices painted his ruin all by themselves. For me, though, the story wasn't about loss anymore. It was about choosing my truth, my voice, my freedom, my happiness. And in that choice, I discovered something even deeper. Sometimes the bravest way to fight family betrayal is to stop fighting and simply walk away. Some wounds heal with time, but betrayal by family leaves a scar that shapes you forever. Declan mocked my dreams, dismissed my voice, and thought love meant control. But in the end, karma doesn't forget. He tried to buy loyalty with houses and ultimatums, and instead, he lost everything. As for me, I stepped into my own sunlight, my life, my voice, my choice.